Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of A New Go of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and joining me today is a fellow 40 under 40, Jenni Nichols. Jenni, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on. So Jenni is a director at DesignLens, which is a subsidiary of John Burns Real Estate Consulting. Really excited to have you on and to get into some of the information that we want to talk about today. But before we get started, as always, we'd love to hear your story of what your journey has been and what is it that you do now?
So I actually started, funny enough, not in the theater industry and was not in the housing industry. Pardon my slip. I was actually in the theater industry. So I studied theater in college and ended up getting a job at an architecture firm part-time to pay the bills, and then fell in love with housing and ended up working there full-time when I finished up college. And then, oh gosh, a long time later, I'm still in the housing industry and love it and enjoy the creativity and the design side of things. So started with an architect and then ended up with John Burns Real Estate Consulting. Started actually doing our consumer research, which is always fascinating because it's really looking into what do people want and kind of how can we help redesign our houses to really get to that. And then took over DesignLens years ago. And then now I'm part of the New Home Trends Institute that does both, which is sort of the best of all worlds. You know, you get to talk design and consumer trends, which is a lot of fun.
Well, very cool. Well, you know, the housing industry is kind of like a theater, you know, everything. You never know what you're going to get. So
yeah, I teased John that I was like, you know, it's funny how many times I use things from my major that you'd never, you know, from public speaking to learning how to do drafting, which helped me read floor plans better. So funny how similar things are sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever wakes up and like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be in home building. Although some people may, but it certainly seems like that's not the case for most people who end up in home building. Yeah. So we're glad you made your switch from theater to what you do now. So as many of you know, John Burns Real Estate Consulting, you guys obviously produce a lot of great information, a lot of statistics, and you host a lot of different events. So would you mind giving us a kind of a quick overview for the type of events you host and the type of data that you produce?
Mostly what John Burns Real Estate Consulting is known for is our fantastic data on the housing market. So the economic side of things and permits and things like that. And then we also have a consulting side that kind of helps answer specific questions using our housing data and really explores the market. So that's, I'd say, what we're primarily known for. And then New Home Trends Institute is kind of the little part on the side that explores. We're part of the research side, but we explore design and consumer trends. So yeah, those are our big sort of core things that we're known for. And then we do several events a year, several summits for our clients, and one focuses on design and consumer, which I run. And then we're about to host our one next week that's really sort of housing market intelligence. And then we do one in the fall that's very sort of takes place in New York, and it's very sort of Wall Street focused. So one is more, it's both sides of the housing market, but one's a little bit more that Wall Street investment side of things, and the other is the home builders and developers.
Very cool. So you get all the data to allow us to make smart business decisions.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about some of this data and some of the trends that you've been seeing recently. Obviously, COVID has turned a lot of things upside down for us, including where people live and where they want to live. So we know that there's been a lot of shifting about the country happening. A lot of people are moving out of California and moving more to Texas and Florida. So can you talk to us about some of those additional trends that you're seeing as far as migration goes?
Part of it was getting out of the big cities, and part of it was driven by, you know, if you can work anywhere, you have the freedom to live where you want to live and not be trapped next to the office that you have to be near. Like one of my coworkers lived in Arizona to be near her office, but her family was in Boston. And she ended up moving back to Boston to be near family. And so she lives now in Boston and telecommutes to Arizona. So the opportunities that we were afforded there is people could live near family, people could live in that place that they always wanted to. So sometimes some of the stuff I heard, and our data backs it up, is some of those secondary markets that were more those vacation markets, Bozeman, Montana, or where people had second homes. They were moving into their second home and not living in their main home as much or at all. And so some of those markets, Boise boomed. One of my coworkers now moved from Southern California to Boise. So during COVID and during the thick of it, as you said, Florida is getting big. Texas. I mean, I was just talking to somebody from Texas who was from the Bay Area, and that is such a common story these days. They were getting out of California and moving to Austin, which is another big tech hub. So yeah, sometimes it's to a little bit more affordable markets. Sometimes it's to those secondary markets that were a little bit more vacation home focused, but yet now they have the freedom to live, in the mountains or in, Bozeman, Montana, or, it gave them the freedom to live where they wanted to live and kind of choose the lifestyle they were looking for.
Absolutely. I know my husband and I had many conversations about buying a home in Outer Banks and just, packing it up and going, because we absolutely love it there. And it's like, hey, if we're both working remotely, why not?
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of people are feeling the same way. So you mentioned migration out of cities. Do you see that that's going to continue as a trend, or do you think millennials or Gen Zs are going to make a comeback into the city? Because the trend was pre-COVID was the opposite. People were moving to the cities and now it's reversing. So are they coming back? Are they staying out of the cities? What do you see?
We actually talked a lot about that because there was such a buzz in 2020 about, everyone will leave the city because nobody wants to be in the city and density is going to go away. And yeah, some people left the city. If you were looking about leaving and moving to the suburbs, this gave you a good excuse to do it finally. But if you like living in a city, you're not going to stop living in a city just because it's a little more challenging. So we definitely saw people leaving in 2020, but it was a smaller percentage than I think a lot of people were talking about. And so I'd say, yes, people left, but no, city living is still going to be city living, and people are going to love to live in New York or Denver or, LA or Chicago. There's something special about being able to be in that sort of vibrant, city living lifestyle, the walkability, the, proximity to work, things like that. So yes, we saw a little bit of urban flight, but shoot, if you like living in the city, you're going to live in the city and not be deterred because of COVID.
Yeah, I think I've seen, especially with New York City, because I have a few friends living in the city, and initially it was like, whoa, we were getting out, moving to Connecticut. And now it seems like a lot of people are certainly moving back in. And I know with prices, homes in the city or rents are all bouncing back up, because during pandemic, you could really get an amazing deal on a rental. There has so many vacancies there, and, people who were able to lock that up, I'm sure happy that they did so. But yeah, it seems like the pricing has bounced back, and I think in the long run, people will always, New York City is going to be what New York City is. So we've also seen kind of some of the trends that for a while there before the pandemic, it seemed that people were choosing smaller homes, smaller yards, not as much upkeep. And then during the pandemic, of course, it all reversed as well. We saw people wanting to have more space since they're spending more time at home, bigger yards, so they can actually enjoy being outside and not be cooped up or locked up. So can you talk to us a little bit about kind of like the bigger trends, and then let's get into some of the smaller micro trends that you see as far as the actual design goes?
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting. Like I mentioned earlier with the shift from the cities, there was also this pushback on, well, density is going to go away and we all want big spaces. And sure, some people want bigger homes and yards. And I think that was definitely spurred on by when you're trapped in your home and not allowed to go anywhere, really, it definitely makes you rethink what you like or dislike about your home. But part of it is density is not going anywhere. With the affordability crisis in the country, you got to go smaller and denser to be able. That's one of the great solutions that you can do to kind of keep costs down. So I'd say not only with land expenses and affordability. So when people can go big, they went bigger. But then there's also that sort of shift back to sometimes if you couldn't afford bigger, sometimes you go with, a great community and a smaller home. And, if you had the great park nearby, walking the dog or going, walking in your neighborhood, it kind of supported, even if you didn't have that outdoor space, you could still, your community still supported that. And so sometimes there was that give and take on what can I afford and what will I give up to get what I want. And so sometimes that was home space and sometimes that was yard space. But yeah, if you could get the bigger house and the bigger yard, people pivoted to that. Mm-hmm. But then there was also sort of the backswing on the other side.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about the popularity and the pop-up of micro communities where I know it's more centered around rentals, but I'd be curious to see if you know of permanent residence type of situation where they're targeted more so to millennials. And it's really it's like the idea of a tiny home. So they're typically about 400 square feet. So they're small dwellings. And then it's centered around this community feel. So they have a lot of communal spaces. There may be pools, playgrounds. There's a stage where they have local performers come in. And so you do have that feeling of like, okay, if I want to be part of a community and if I want to be close to people, it's all right there. But then by the same time, if I want my privacy, I can just retreat back to my home and really get that privacy. So are you seeing anything like that on the resale, on the actual buy side?
There's a company in Seattle, the Cottage Company, that's done a lot of communities like that. And then Garmin Homes down in North Carolina did a really cute one at Chatham Park that is adorable. And it's exactly like you described it. And they were all for sale. And it was cute little cottages, and garages were sort of off site or all grouped together some other place. So it became these cute little cottages around a shared green. They're less common, I know, because of zoning issues and stuff like that, but I think they're adorable, and they're a cute solution for a little bit more attainable and still also keeping that lifestyle. Like you said, sometimes that sense of community really enhances a neighborhood.
Absolutely. Obviously, we've seen the popularity of outdoor spaces, even, things like cooking at home more so as opposed to going out. Although, this past weekend, I drove by our local downtown and it was, whoa, everyone was out, but it's, spring and the restaurants were packed to the brink. But I do agree that I think more people are cooking at home. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah. We've done some surveys on kitchens and outdoor spaces and work from home and whatnot. And kitchens, one of the things we dug into is, did you start cooking more during the last couple of years? And are you still cooking more now? And a majority still cook. We're cooking a lot, which was kind of cool to hear, because you kind of assumed, okay, when we got stuck in our homes and people got into their little hobbies and cooking was one of them. And would that continue? And it looks like, we'll see. But it looks like at least people got into cooking and sort of the joy of experiencing that and doing that. So kitchens rose in importance and people are still cooking, and then cooking more, I should say, than they used to. And then, like you said, outdoor spaces, in the last couple of years when we were, stuck in our homes a lot more, a lot more people started valuing their private outdoor space because they couldn't necessarily go other places, and enhancing it. So it became, fire pits and outdoor kitchens, and big or small, because I've seen some 8-foot deep yards. I mean, nothing super huge, but where they're basically patios outside of a smaller home. It's if you make it cool and vibrant and something you've enhanced it, even that becomes something people are desiring. So sometimes, if you have the big, massive backyard with lots of green space and the kids can play and the dog can run and things like that, that's always great. But then it's the enhancement. So it's the outdoor kitchens and the, alfresco dining, and that increased. And our surveys have definitely said people are valuing their outdoor space even more than they did a couple of years ago, and really spending more time out there. And I don't see that going away.
Mm-hmm. So for builders, that certainly means that offering maybe decks or patios outside is an option. That's probably going to be something very popular. And then as far as kitchen trends, what do you see? I mean, I'd imagine if you're spending more time in the kitchen and you're cooking more, what types of, appliances or upgrades that you guys are seeing that are popular now, or what can our builders think about offering?
Sure. So entertainment centric kitchens are big to get right. And the key stuff that people are doing in kitchens is cook, entertain, and eat. So you want to give them a place to do those three things. And entertain, you want to make it look good. It should be welcoming and interesting, exciting looking or beautiful. And so oftentimes that entertain and eat means nice sized kitchen island. So sometimes I've seen a good sized kitchen island. Sometimes I've seen builders totally get rid of the, sometimes you get the big great rooms and there's that sort of arbitrary dining space in the middle of the great room. I've seen builders take it so that there's more gathering space and more kitchen space, get rid of the dining space and do eat-in kitchens. And eat-in kitchens are a great affordable solution, attainable solution too. But I've definitely seen it in some higher end homes where it's just sort of making better use of the space. And so they'll do either double islands, or I've seen kind of an island with like a drop down portion so people can sit around the drop down portion of the island. So some creative islands I think are good to consider. Eat-in kitchens definitely, make it a space to share. And then the other thing we've seen pop up on a decent amount of homes is that back or dirty kitchen. So if people are making their main kitchen a space to share, sometimes they want a place to put the dirty dishes that is not in the main kitchen. And so having that kind of back kitchen or dirty kitchen, and I've seen it in kind of mid-sized homes as well, not just in the luxury space. So is it a little bit more efficient and kind of a hybrid walk-in pantry in the mid-sized homes? Absolutely. But is it in the bigger homes, is definitely that prep kitchen in the back.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that on Instagram as I scroll through. My whole feed is just beautiful luxury homes, of course. So yeah, it's got a secret door in the kitchen, and you open it up, and it's the whole back room, quote unquote, walk-in pantry. That's definitely a great idea. What about smart appliances? I know that for a lot of new home buyers, that is something that they're starting to gravitate more towards. So are you seeing more people in general have a desire to implement smart appliances in their home, in the kitchen?
Yes. I find smart tech is if it helps make things easier, people are going to embrace it. If it's one more thing to worry about, it becomes kind of ungainly. So smart appliances, hey, if I can check my, oven heat on my phone, that's great. So things that make things easier and simpler are definitely being adopted by people a lot more. If it's kind of ungainly or a little bit more challenging, that's where you get a little bit more of the pushback. I haven't seen a huge burst in smart home appliances, only because I think supply chain has just really put a damper on a lot of the appliance trends that I've seen, where people will get into stuff, but if you can't get it, you can't get it. So sort of finding the balance between the two of, okay, what can you get? What can you provide your people? But I'd say, yeah, absolutely. If smart tech makes your life easier, think about upgrading or including that.
Yeah, it's so great what you said, is that it has to be easy to use, because if it's not, it's just another thing that is intimidating, and it applies to all tech. So, that whether it's your marketing, sales technology, whatever it is, it has to be easy. I mean, it's, if you think about our smartphones, it's like a 2-year-old knows how to use that, right? So
yeah, right.
Yeah, so definitely make it 2-year-old approved when it comes to technology. I was listening to some of the trends with technology, and obviously a lot of big tech has benefited from the downturn. They all do great when things are going great, but they do really well when things are not going so well. In particular, Amazon. I mean, if you think about Amazon was really designed for pandemic, right? So I'd imagine a lot more of us are shopping online, getting packages. So do you see that translate into the type of design in the home with drop ship zones and package receiving stations, or are they here to stay?
We explored a lot about what can you do with packages in the last couple of years. And obviously, yeah, we were getting so many more packages and there was package theft and things like that. I think the really complicated or fancy package drop zones where you had, the code and the kind of comes back to home tech. If it's really complicated, it's probably not going to stay around. So I'm not saying package drop, lockers and things like that are going away, but private ones just sort of became hard to include, hard to get the post office to invent. It was sort of a complicated process versus some of the stuff I've seen that I think is here to stay is Amazon lockers in the community. So having a central spot near the rec building that has, your Amazon lockers. I've seen that in multiple communities and continuing to get bigger. So private lockers, probably not so much, but that shared community locker, absolutely. Because if you can get somebody to drop it off in some spot that you can swing by on your way home, great. And then some of the simpler solutions, the raised porches where you can kind of tuck things to the side. Courtyards seem to sort of find their way back, and not just in Mediterranean or Tuscan style homes, but, I've seen them in, Boston and kind of charming East Coast styles. So kind of the return of the courtyard and non-traditional styles, so not Mediterranean, and then having that little door so somebody could just drop it on the other side of the door. So, or I should say gate to your courtyard and then front door beyond. So I've seen some simpler privacy solutions like the courtyard and the just the raised porch and things like that, but definitely a shift away from fancier tech in the home and more that, okay, if you're going to go with the locker, you're, seeing communities offer that as an amenity.
So what other trends are you seeing besides what we've talked about already? Anything that jumps out at you?
Sure. So those transition zones became very important. And there was definitely a sense of, they became sanitation zones, and there was discussion of, oh God, what was it? It was like mist that would come down on top of you when you pushed a button to sanitize you from the outside. And oh God, I hope that stuff is going away. But transition zones, I think people started to get used to and appreciate that transition between the outdoors and the inside. And so obviously I live in Denver and places like Denver and the East Coast, we value our drop zones because they're the, you put your muddy boots there and that's where you drop your purse and your coat. But even places that are a little bit more temperate or desert markets are starting to value those drop zones and shifting to having that place to, whether it's hanging the dog's leash or dropping off your purse or having a charging station. So sanitation transition zone is going away, but the drop zone and having that transition between indoors and out is here to stay. And people learn to appreciate that and enjoy that.
I have not seen the mist station, but
it was so we have a councils as part of our New Home Trends Institute, and it's great people around the country and senior people from builders and developers and architects and whatnot, and we have discussions about kind of what's going on and what are they seeing in design. I run the Home Design Council, so my group tends to talk about things like what you're asking, package solutions. And so, yeah, some of the stuff would come up and we'd be talking about something and all of us would be like, wait, what? What are we researching? Sanitation, mist coming down. So yeah, there was definitely some crazy stuff that came up in the last couple of years that I think is definitely gonna wane. And hey, some people may still embrace it, but there's certain things that are, work from home and needing a space to work from home. Okay, if more than half of us are still going to work from home, even in a hybrid setting, I mean, we have to consider that in our homes. And I think if anything, the last couple of years taught us sometimes we need two spaces, because if you have a couple working at home, but they both don't need to be big offices, that our sort of throwback that we always used to assume was, okay, that space in the front of the home that could be a bedroom, that could flex as an office. And I think the last couple of years taught us, hey, we really don't need that much space, so rethinking office sizes, rethinking where they're located, kind of looking at the multiple office setups. Are they Zoom friendly? Where's the window? If the window's back here, it's a bad thing. So some of the simple stuff of just rethinking our office spaces and realizing the continued value of work from home in the home is definitely something I think builders need to take note of.
Yeah, it's certainly, if companies want to stay competitive right now, they got to offer that work from home option, because I know a lot of developers, engineers, it's like there's no reason for you to be in the office. So if you want to be able to keep that talent and retain the talent, then you got to be able to offer that flexibility to people. Because I think after you had a taste of what that's like to not sit in traffic, and saves you potentially 2 hours a day between getting ready for that and all that other stuff, it's like, who wants to go back to the office? Although some people probably do. So especially if you have a lot of little kids running around you.
Yeah, well, we did a lot of research into work from home, and we've done a couple surveys. We did one in 2020 and then one a year later. There's definitely a shift in life stage of what people want. So, if you're mature singles or couples, okay, if it's open to everything, who cares? It's you and your husband, or just you, or you and your partner, I should say, versus family buyers. Oh my goodness. Privacy became so much more important, and if it was younger kids, they liked having the glass doors so they could still see them. If it was older kids, sometimes they wanted really solid doors and a space away. And so it was interesting to see, you can't just assume, one size fits all doesn't really work anymore. Or the younger buyers, like one of the things that was so prevalent for years and years was that office space in the kitchen. Yes. And we have laptops, so we don't need some sort of major setup. And the kitchen, as I said, our research has said, they really don't want to work in the kitchen. They want to, play and eat in the kitchen. And so, you got to get rid of the desk in the kitchen and look at, okay, maybe it's putting the desk in that, a wider hallway upstairs, or, and because we have laptops, you can sort of hop to different spaces. So, if you don't have the kids around, you have a little bit more flexibility of, okay, I can work at the island right now, or I can work in my formal office, or I can work outside if it's really pretty.
We've seen some shifts in the market conditions recently. Is that something you guys have talked about? Do you have any data as to what you think is going to happen?
John Burns, our CEO, does monthly webinars. Originally used to do biannual webinars. He would sort of do a couple a year. And then COVID hit and he started doing weekly webinars because, oh my God, everything was insane. And we were trying to figure it out ourselves. And then now it's to monthly, thank goodness. I took that as a good sign that things aren't as crazy, that we need to talk weekly. But a couple months ago, we talked big and into inflation. And last month it was interest rates going up, because you can't ignore our industry has been so hot. There was that funny little stumble step at the beginning of COVID where all of us sort of didn't know what to do. And then once we found our stride, things flew. I mean, oh my God, people are selling. We couldn't build things fast enough. I think interest rates, it's going to slow us down. I think it's going to take a little bit But like you said, what you could afford a couple months ago, you can no longer afford. So I think we're going to start to see a softening and slowing. I think it's going to take a little bit to hit. And John's really looking at early next year more than this year for things to start slowing more. But even what he's predicting, he's not looking for some massive downturn. It's just things were so hot. It's a little hard to maintain a 10 a month pace. So as far as he's talking, is it's much more, okay, we're going to shift back to maybe 2 or 3 a month, which, okay, that's doable. We're still selling homes, but not at that fevered pace that we're at right now where people just can't keep up. So yeah, it's going to affect us. And we definitely have to start rethinking. I mean, that's part of our theme this year, even with New Home Trends Institute, is we got to rethink. We can't just keep on keeping on. And with interest rates rising, that just forces us to go, okay, if we have, months till things start softening more, what can we be doing to prepare? And what should we be thinking about? And I think great design it's a differentiator. So it helps you, if you pay attention to what your consumers want and help design homes that they want, and then also keep, value engineering and pricing in the back of your head, that gives you a really good step forward, even if things start to soften, because it gives you that differentiator from other builders.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't say that like, oh, this is, a great pause because it's going to allow us to catch up with the supply chain issues, because unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be getting any better anytime soon. But I'm definitely excited for some of the new technologies that are being developed and being utilized more so, like 3D printing and modular construction, to really reinvent the way we build homes and how long it takes to build a home and how much material goes into that. And of course, there's a big affordability issue and we have a huge gap to fill. So those things I'm excited for. And sometimes it does take a crisis to really force us into innovation, I think. So at the end of the day, hopefully we come out of this better. Now, Jenny, as we wrap things up, is there any last thoughts, any call to action, anything else that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I think sticking with the rethink and just given that we know things have to soften and let's step back and think about, a couple things, what do consumers want and how can we better give it to them? And then, like you said, Anya, technology, what can we weave in? And sometimes that's, it was great that we've pivoted to buying homes online. And, I think some of the stuff that came up in the last couple of years is going to really help us and take us to the next level. So we've changed how we've done home buying. That's great. And like you said, with new technologies, with home construction, I think it's definitely something to keep in mind and time to rethink and keep getting better.
Yes. So Jenny, if somebody wants to connect with you and learn more about what you do, where do you hang out on social media, or what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I tend to be on LinkedIn a lot. So Jenny Nichols on LinkedIn with John Burns Real Estate Consulting, or they can check out our website, newhometrendsinstitute.com. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on today. It was great chatting with you, and thanks for sharing some of the insights with our listeners. And hopefully,
thanks for having me.
I will see you in person very soon.
I know, definitely.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.